This is the Washington Times front page for Thursday, July 23rd, 2026. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. Chances of a peace deal between Iran and the United States seem especially distant after President Trump repeated his threats to strike at civilian targets there, and Tehran said it would retaliate. Von Conkane and Tom Howell report the president indicated he was prepared to escalate the bombing of Iran if its forces continue to interfere with commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump has made repeated threats to attack Iran's civilian infrastructure since the war began on February 28th. He hopes to use his threats to force Iran back to the negotiating table, where it may agree to concessions on its nuclear program. Iran's response indicated it was willing to authorize similar strikes on American regional partners. House Republicans have narrowly adopted a budget reconciliation blueprint containing up to $95 billion in defense funding, farm aid, and election integrity measures. Lindsey McPherson reports the budget resolution advanced by a 216 to 214 vote after some Republicans who had threatened to oppose it flipped their votes. Ultimately, only 2 Republicans and 1 independent voted in opposition. Ohio Representative Warren Davidson objected to the lack of offsets, and Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie criticized the defense funding as a slush fund for the Iran war. Independent California Representative Kevin Kiley also voted no. The Senate isn't yet on board with the resolution, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune said he plans to hold the budget while the chamber debates a stopgap government funding bill. A group of landlords has sued to block New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani's rent freeze as they face a barrage of changes to the city's rental sector. They argue in court documents reviewed by our Susan Ferriccio that Mamdani handpicked most of the Rent Guidelines Board members, ensuring it would vote to block rent increases for the next fiscal year, which begins October 1st. The 5 landlords suing to overturn the freeze accuse the board of manipulating data to conceal the financial hardship many landlords face if rent increases are prohibited. The city launched its tenant-friendly rental overhaul last month, including a rent freeze on approximately 1 million stabilized apartments. The director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History told Congress the entire facility comes with a parental advisory warning on its content. Stephen Dinan reports director Anthea Hartig said the museum's policy requires anyone younger than 18 to be accompanied by an adult and urges those adults to ensure the content is suitable for their children before going through the exhibits. Hartig said a gay liberation exhibit that drew scrutiny was closed years ago, but it had a parental warning attached to its content. Chinese President Xi Jinping has removed more than 100 senior military leaders since 2022, far more than his government has officially acknowledged, according to a U.S. Air Force think tank report. Overall, Bill Gertz reports the dismissals have reduced the members of the Central Military Commission, the organization that controls the Chinese People's Liberation Army's troops, from 7 to 2. A specific reason for the dismissals isn't clear in the new report issued by the China Aerospace Studies Institute. And finally, the next generation of U.S. soccer fans is growing, even if some are skeptical of the boost the World Cup can provide to bring the sport into the mainstream. The U.S.-hosted World Cup has been wildly successful for FIFA and television broadcast partners. But Liam Griffin reports despite the tournament's record ratings and healthy ticket sales, one element is likely to limit the sport's impact on Americans, another underwhelming performance by the United States squad. A middle-of-the-pack U.S. team is a harder sell for American sports fans who are accustomed to a more dominant presence on the international sports landscape. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on social media at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerber.